At some point, safety just is pure waste. I mean, if you just want to be safe, don't get out of bed, don't get in your car, don't do anything.
Yeah.
At some point, you're going to take some risk, and it really is a risk-reward question. I said, I think I can do this just as safely by breaking the rules.
Greetings everybody, Maximus here. So now that they have retrieved what's left of OceanGate's Titan Submersible from the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, you can see all that appears to have survived the devastating implosion are the titanium end caps and shattered pieces of what is left of the unpressurized portions of the sub. But what we don't see is any part of the carbon fiber pressure vessel that held the 5 occupants. And yes, they say they may have found traces of remains of those victims, but honestly the word traces can be open to interpretation, because they are probably not much more than microscopic pieces, if at all. So for my last video on the subject, before I get back to aviation full-time, I wanted to talk about something that I've been trying to wrap my head around for the past few weeks, and that is implosion. And yes, there are many 30-second videos on TikTok and YouTube Shorts that are all good videos on the subject, but I'm not only making this video for you, the YouTube viewer, but I'm actually also making it for me personally. Because like I said, I still can't seem to grasp the idea of basically vanishing into a fine mist faster than a nanosecond. Also, I'm going to hit various subjects, so I'll be sure to add chapters down below, so you can skip around if you like. We talk about imploding into the great beyond, next on Maximus. Much like a ship, a sub, or a plane, our bodies are also vessels, except our vessels are wrapped in skin, muscle, and tissue used as a conveyance to transport our internal organs, our brains, hearts, and lungs, among others, from point A to point B as we traverse our daily lives. However, unlike other man-made transport vessels, our bodies are filled with air, thanks to the lungs and the blood pressure from the heart and a bone skeleton, as well as about 60% water to protect all those internal mechanisms. And over millennia of evolution under Earth's quite substantial air pressure, our human vessels or bodies have adapted to the 1 atmosphere of air pressure that is pushing around us from all sides at all times. And according to really smart people who calculate these things, we know that 14.7 psi, or pounds per square inch, of atmospheric pressure at sea level on Earth are pressing down on every square inch of our bodies at all times. So if we look at our body surface calculator using the global statistics that the average man is roughly 5'9" and 197 pounds, we'll just round that up to 200 pounds, which gives us anywhere between 2,900 to 3,100 square inches per man. So then the next obvious question you may ask is, why don't we get crushed by all this weight squeezing us on all sides? Well, that's because that atmospheric weight is distributed evenly over Earth's surface, and also evenly over the surface of your body. Because the amount of atmospheric pressure exerted on your body on all sides at all times is counterbalanced by the pressure exerted outward from your own body's pressure due to the facts I mentioned before. It's because of our lungs, blood pressure, air pressure, and water we all carry in our bodies. Additionally, we inhale and exhale the very same atmosphere that is trying to crush us. Thus, the air pressure inside our bodies is the same as the air pressure outside our bodies, which ensures that we don't get crushed to a pulp at any given second. In other words, there is just as much pressure inside our body pressing outward as there is air pressure outside the body pressing inward, so they cancel each other out. As a result, there is no net force on the body. However, and this is a huge however, the tremendous pressure under the ocean is a completely different story, but we'll get to that in a minute. But much like in a plane or just moving to a higher elevation on Earth, you can feel that change in your inner ear, and the same also applies to diving underwater. If you've ever been in the deep end of a swimming pool, you know this feeling firsthand already. But if you dive into the ocean even just a few feet, a noticeable change occurs. You can feel that same increase in pressure in your eardrums you felt in the pool. This is due to an increase in hydrostatic pressure, This is the force per unit exerted by a liquid on an object. So I'm sure, as most of you would imagine, and most of you probably know, the deeper you go underwater in the sea, the greater the pressure of the water pushing down on you. So for every 33 feet or 10.06 meters you go down, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere. Now, imagine being at the depths of the Titanic, 12,500 to 13,000 feet down at the ocean floor. The water pressure is incredibly immense, nearly 400 times more than at the ocean surface, which means that roughly 6,000 pounds would have been pressing down on every square inch of anyone and anything at that depth. And that was exactly what was pressing down on the doomed Titan Submersible Titan's exterior. So if you translate that into physical force, it's going to be in the high thousands of tons, or about 10,000 tons. So the analogy would be that the weight of the Eiffel Tower being the kind of loads that Titans and those inside experienced. Okay, so by this point I think you get the picture. Sea level is good. 13,000 feet under the sea is very bad. So you would think it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out you need to make a submersible capable of those depths to be made out of the strongest materials on Earth, such as steel or titanium. But apparently the team at OceanGate figured glue and fiber, a gaming joystick, and some Home Depot lighting would be good enough. Well, sadly, as we all found out, and not without great warning from the submariner community, carbon fiber acted as predicted by the majority of the scientific calculations, and unfortunately claimed 5 lives. And now that the wreckage has been officially recovered, you have to look no further than the items that survived the implosion. For example, here you can see the titanium rings from Titan are fully intact. Had the entire sub been made out of titanium or steel, I wouldn't be making this video right now. But if you're like me, and I know millions if not billions of you are, you too were Googling the crap out of what is an underwater implosion, and how can it possibly vaporize humans into microscopic pieces in a matter a billion times faster than a blink of an eye. Well, in an implosion, instead of exploding outward, the implosion is directed inward. And as the US Coast Guard finally revealed, they heard the sound of the implosion at the moment that it happened. As a matter of fact, here's Stockton Rush speaking about the tremendous explosive power of carbon fiber under pressure.
To me, the more stuff you've broken, the more innovative you've been. And this is a 3rd scale model that we took to the chamber at the University of Washington and took it to destruction. And once you go over 6,000 psi in the Ocean Sciences Building, you can only do that at night, and then they get on the loudspeaker and they tell everybody to get out. And now I'm standing next to this chamber, and we blow this thing up. It's the loudest thing I've ever heard. It shook the whole building, blew out all the pressure sensors, which I had to rebuy for the university.
So now at this point, we know OceanGate, led by its maverick CEO Stockton Rush, cut corners and built a submersible vehicle that was a disaster waiting to happen. And sadly, that disaster indeed finally happened. So then what was it like for the 5 poor souls on board the Titan Submersible? Well, as you all know by now, fortunately their end was merciful and quick. So quick in fact that the word quick is actually an eternity to compare how fast it actually happened. Okay, so now we get to the point of how the men met their doom in the black deep waters of the Atlantic Ocean. If we go back to our square inch of man chart, using the model of a human about 5 feet 9 inches and 200 pounds, times 5 passengers in a tiny coffin, the PSI at about 13,000 feet is 6,000 pounds per square inch of pressure at that depth. Multiply 3,000 square inches times 6,000 psi on a 200-pound man, and that equals roughly 18 million. Yes, 18 million pounds of pressure per person, and on the sub. And with that pressure, there is no such thing as a small leak, because in a nanosecond the entire sub would be basically obliterated. But just for a comparison, let's take a look at a water jet cutting through inches of high-grade titanium. Keeping in mind, a water jet only operates at near a max range of about 60,000 psi, not 18 million. And yes, while there is comfort for the poor families of the victims that they probably never knew what hit them due to the speed of the implosion. However, and this is another really big however, we don't know that for sure, because it may have happened in a way that they at least had a chance to hear their vessel begin to creak and groan before its final implosion. It's possible because Rush has said in the past that if the plexiglass dome cracked, they would still have time to resurface.
The acrylic's great because it squeezes it, and before it cracks or fails, it starts to crackle, and so you get a huge warning if it's going to fail.
But sadly, if the outer layer of carbon fiber began to unravel before the implosion, it's possible they all knew their end was near. And that information may still come to light. However, we won't know until they have all the tapes and have been analyzed. But according to really smart doctors that know this kind of stuff, the Journal of Neuroscience did a study where they determined that pain takes 100 milliseconds to travel to your brain and be processed. That was 99 milliseconds longer than it took for the 5 souls to die from the implosion. Additionally, a study done by MIT in 2014 concluded that it takes 13 milliseconds for the brain to compute visual stimulation, so your brain would be liquefied before you even had time to see and process anything you saw or felt. And finally, what of any remains were left of the 5 inside? Well, frankly, nothing more than a mist that would probably have drifted away in the current before the fish could even find what was left. Because they were faced with another problem after the implosion. Because the submersible was filled with gases from human oxygen, H2O, as well as spare oxygen canisters and other various expelled gases. Because of the tremendous pressure cooker-like atmosphere created by the force of the implosion, whatever was left, if any, of the passengers would have been subjected to a heat of over 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 5,538 degrees Celsius. And yes, that's hotter than the sun, instantly vaporizing any matter still left inside. Some compare this reaction to a diesel engine compression cycle. I found this video I think that will show a pretty good example of what happens. In this video, you can see the rapid compression of the air raises the air temperature to about 600 C, well above the flash point. This is the same process as happens in a diesel engine and an explosion after an implosion. High rapid pressure leads to an explosion. So as many horrified onlookers around the world were hoping to find something, any remains to return to their families. The sad truth is that if anything at all was left after the implosion, like I said, it would have just been mist and microscopic pieces of matter floating away in the current, hopefully and mercifully finally coming to rest peacefully on the deck of the Titanic, adding 5 more souls to the already 1,500 resting along with her at the bottom of the Atlantic. So like I said, this will be my last installment on the subject, and I'll be back on my usual aviation beat. But hopefully I was able to put a different spin on many of the videos you've seen over the past few weeks, and if not, that's okay too. And of course, I know there are so many very smart subscribers out there, and if I went off the rails anywhere, please let me know down below and we'll talk about it. Well, that's all I have for now. Please don't forget to subscribe if you think I deserve it. Remember to like, share, and ring the bell. And remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time. In the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.